In our old days with the price comparison site, we sold a helicopter on eBay. We did get paid for that one.
Last year alone, RedBrain drove over 1 billion in sales through Google for their retail partners.
Jeez.
You know, I think negative keywords are worthwhile if you have a high level of carousel coverage.
You help brands sell way more products with zero risk.
We have historically sold a £300,000 watch and then you don't get the commission for it. CSS is almost seen like the silver bullet. I mean, the sales pitch there, isn't it? Like sales from Google Shopping, no risk, only pay when you generate a sale. Why would you not put 7 of them on? Like, well, let them all fight it out.
On a commission-only basis, you've sold a 300-gram watch, you sold a helicopter. What other weird and wonderful stuff can you remember that you might have sold?
It's not a proven stat, but I think people say it's about 60% of the time, the product you click on is not the product you buy.
By a brand, do you get treated like PPC? Or do you get treated like, I think I know the answer.
If only.
You get treated like affiliate?
Yeah, but then it comes down to depending on how much volume you're doing.
Cheers, Jared. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Jared. Welcome.
Yeah. So let's jump into the intro.
Yeah.
You are Jared Owen, CEO of RedBrain. RedBrain as a business is quite literally one of the biggest success stories in the affiliate industry. To give you a sense of scale, RedBrain is currently processing 4 billion product offers every single day. You are eBay's largest CPA partner in Europe, and you're a Bing partner across 24 countries. You own shopping.co.uk, which hosts over 7 million products. And this is a crazy one. Last year alone, RedBrain drove over 1 billion in sales through Google for their retail partners.
Jeez.
It's a massive operation, but it's been bootstrapped from day one. So Jared, you've been at the center of this for several years now. You've moved from CRO to MD and now CEO. Your background is actually quite fascinating because you came from the Wild West of high volume content arbitrage before taking the helm of this business that's now a core pillar of the Google Shopping ecosystem. You've managed to scale this to 12,000 retailers while maintaining a large team of people in-house, including developers, PPC managers. And from our perspective, RedBrain has gone on to really build CSS as a major pillar of the affiliate industry through its recent evolution. So great to have you.
No, thank you for having me.
What an intro.
I know,
Did you like the intro?
Yeah, I'm going to clip that up just for my own LinkedIn profile.
You went hard on that one.
Yeah, well, it's the coffee.
It was good.
Yeah.
Banging.
So we're going to jump into all things CSS, all the hot topics around the affiliate industry and the future of ecom. But first, I just wanted to jump into the origin story of RedBrain, because we discussed this previously and I found it fascinating. I was aware of RedBrain from the really early days, actually because of one individual called Doug Scott, who is this eccentric angel investor, and I didn't know you at the time and wasn't aware of your role in the story, but yeah, we heard it last week, and I'd love for you to repeat it now.
Yeah, so I think eccentric is a nice tag for Doug. So my background to get into work alongside Doug originally was I had a friend that worked for this business I knew nothing about, and he was like, "Oh, my owner, he likes to bring people in. He said, if you think you got a smart friend, bring him in and let me chat to him." So I was like, "Oh, it's a bit odd, but yeah, why not?" So I went in. It was like I think it was 5:30, and it was in Lichfield. They're really old buildings and like big kind of doors. And I opened the door expecting to walk into a reception. I walked into the middle of an office and it was just like, everything was going on. 20 minutes with Doug, really nice guy. Like you can see, thinks the world, sees the world through a different lens. Left, went for a beer with my mate, thought nothing of it. And so that was kind of the end of it. But the next day I get an email. The whole thing's in the subject line. "Are you coming to play?" Smiley face. I'm like, "All right, what do you mean?" He's like, "Would you want to come and work here?" I replied, "Well, what will I do?" And the response was, "I'm sure you'll find something." And it was one of those like almost sliding door moments. I was like, if I don't do this now, I think I was 35 at the time. If I don't do this now, I'm going to go down the corporate route. I'm just going to, kind of end up in some mid-level market position, wanting to move up. No, I'll do it. Went in and, from day one, loved it. Kind of like loved the energy, loved the kind of attitude of the people there. And that's kind of what RedBrain spun up out of. And, there were lots of businesses constantly. It was always like a startup hub. Doug would back it. You had 3 months to prove you could get it to scale. If it didn't work, it was binned. On to your next one.
Like The Apprentice.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, but with less you getting fired, I think. More just like, well, bin that, you're wasting your time on it. So he's always been very good at kind of giving you a period of time to prove it can work, but you don't get a year. You don't get it's like, right, there's a small team of you, prove it can scale, off you go. So At the time, RedBrain was called ASAP Compare. They were doing price comparison with text ads. And I ended up in a company called Time to Break at the time. And it was literally a content arbitrage thing. We started on Facebook, then we moved to Taboola, Outbrain, and then Yahoo was our big kind of break. And I remember we put an ad live on Yahoo, watching real-time analytics, and literally we had 75,000 people real-time just appear on our site, and we were like, what is going on? And so we scaled that. Yeah, it was kind of, really great period, but it was never going to last as an industry. As these companies got more mature, it was always going to change. So yeah, Doug then asked me to come into RedBrain and into the stories.
And how many people were involved at that stage when it was just being spun out?
So RedBrain or
RedBrain.
Yeah, so RedBrain, I think there was 20 people at the time. So they'd scaled from the EC ruling. They'd been able to immediately target the CPA model, and I think 85% of it was engineers. So very early on, we were like, right, we want to build a tech system from the ground up that can power this business. Probably, and I've kind of been saying this a little bit more, the original idea was there'll be no people. There'll just be this engineers in the background. There'll be no front end people in this system. A retailer or an agency will go in and say, right, this is my CPA and this is what I'm looking for, and the system would just work it out. And it still does parts of that, but the human relationship part has been huge for RedBrain over the last 4 or 5 years, and that's really what's allowed us to scale.
And I think we've got quite a lot of casual listeners, just that in the marketing or business sphere in general, looking at our analytics recently at the podcast. Can we just ask you to, for their benefit, just explain RedBrain to, as if you was explaining to a complete layperson?
Yep. So RedBrain is what's called a comparison shopping service. And what that means is we're allowed to run Google Shopping ads in the carousel with our own spend. So when you're searching for a product, the carousel appears at the top, pictures, price, you click out to it, you go direct to the retailer's site. If you ever look, and once you mention it, people always end up going, I saw your name, loads. It's like, they'll always say, buy RedBrain, buy Google, etc. What changed was it wasn't just Google able to do it. So we took our CPA model and pivoted that into this space. So yeah, you'll always notice the ads once you're aware of them.
So I could search the word milkshake on Google. There'll be a whole carousel of different milkshake products. Some of them might be from Tesco, some of them might be from a milkshake company. That milkshake company, Yazoo, you guys might be working with them for argument's sake. And so you would also be on there, but selling for their product for them as RedBrain.
Yeah, so it allows the retailer, the brand, to essentially run their own adverts, and then we can run alongside them, and they're only paying us when we generate the sale. So increase that kind of digital shelf space coverage with the added upside of, on their own activity, they're paying Google every time they get a click. With us, they're only paying when it's a guaranteed sale.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then obviously, Jamie said in the intro, like, you guys are completely goated on Google in the UK, 1 billion of sales. That's Google as a whole, 1 billion in sales revenue in a year for Google. So that's obviously a very dominant channel for you. But I know one of our marketing manager is like obsessed with Pokemon, and she's just like excitedly sent me like a screenshot of a Pokemon card she was looking at, and it was on eBay, and it was advertised by RedBrain. And she was like, what the fuck? Why is there RedBrain on eBay with Pokemon cards? And I was like, well, this is, goes beyond Google, right?
Yeah. No, yeah, 100%. And I think, eBay and Pokemon cards is a perfect example. Also not great for us a lot of time, I'll be honest, because people like to click on the Pokemon cards just to see how much they are. They're never going to buy them. But so, we're paying for those clicks. But yeah, we've built a system that essentially can filter, prioritize products, make sure that the right products are appearing on the right search terms, and making sure that people are clicking.
In eBay?
Yeah. So for eBay, so we've worked with eBay for over 10 years now, in CSS since it started. So the last kind of 8-9 years. And they've been a great partner from day one. They have, I think in the UK, 700 million products. So you get that feed every day. You kind of have to try and work out how you're going to get products live and also not have, huge overlap with what they're pushing in terms of their best sellers. If you want to add value and be incremental, which is obviously one of the things CSS is big on, is you have got to start surfacing products that they're not getting their own traffic on.
Yeah, because eBay, Google, Bing, I think there's others as well. Obviously, you've got shopping.co.uk, any big volume sales channel, right? You guys are there. So if I was your salesperson, would this be a good elevator pitch, or like a really simple way of condensing it, that you help brands sell way more products with zero risk?
Yeah. So zero risk, and essentially if the product gets returned, the commission goes back to them as well. Mm-hmm. So, I don't like the word no-brainer, but it feels like it's got to be, if you're looking to scale your paid acquisition on Google, using RedBrain is the perfect way to do that, because you're getting the traffic, you're getting the audience building, you're getting the sales, and then you've got the security of, if it's a customer that returns, then, RedBrain is wearing that risk. So, we view it very much as a partnership, and that's, where we want to scale the industry to.
At the risk of sounding dumb, because we're running a affiliate agency, and quite a big one in the UK. So I should have known this, but only recently learned about the legislation that makes, and tell me if this is right or wrong, but makes Google Shopping CSS, like your model of affiliate publisher in Google Shopping in Europe, quite unique.
Yeah.
And can we talk about that? There's like an anti.
So I think the technical ruling was DMA 65, and essentially it meant that shopping carousel was deemed anti-competitive. So
historically, like a monopoly law.
Yeah. So price comparators, like we used to be with ASAP Compare, a few other big price comparators, basically complained to the European Commission that when Google launched shopping carousel, it pushed everything down. So you then had the shopping carousel, then you had text ads, then you started to get the organic ads, which is where price comparators used to appear. The European Commission agreed, ruled it anti-competitive, and said, right, you have to open up the carousel to comparison shopping services. Off the back of that, various different models span out. We've always been CPA at heart. We think it's the model both best aligned with kind of a retailer's success. So that's what we focused on.
What are other people doing then? Just selling the clicks cheaper?
So there was a bit of a funny market when it first started. The figure that everyone works on, and Google will never announce it, is that 20% of your bid is Google's agency fee. So you bid £1, actually your bid in the auction is 80p. Google take 20p as their agency fee. There's no invoice for it. There's no tracking of it. It's just that's what's deemed. So when it started, you had everyone all of a sudden going, well, we'll do it for 10. So actually, stop doing Google. We'll charge. So there was 10% to spend doing, and then gradually law of diminishing returns and race to the bottom. I think I spoke to a retailer a few years ago, and they were paying 0.25%, and you kind of, and then now it's gone to pretty much flat fee, because ultimately it is just you're hosting the ads in your merchant center. The value add is when people have got feed tools, they've got various other bits that you're getting included in it, but the core functionality is, instead of being by Google, it's by the CSS. If you buy the CSS, you don't pay the agency fee. You pay whatever you've agreed with.
So for us dummies, and I know this isn't the most exciting thing we're going to talk about today, but I think it is kind of interesting, the legislation side of it. Google was forced to give let's call it 20%, to make a 20% margin, right?
Yeah.
On their carousel ads. So run it as its own business, basically. Yeah. That allowed third parties to come in, like yourselves and others, and run and take that same 20% margin, which they could choose to pass on in different ways to retailers, and then give them more reach and more profitable ads. Yeah.
So if you're a retailer and you were bidding £1 with Google, you bid that £1 with your new third-party CSS, that bid is now worth £1. Your clicks, impressions, etc., should go up. Or you can go, actually, I just want to bid 80p, and you're saving money on the cost. Google Shopping has to make a profit as part of it, as part of the settlement, so it can't run at a loss to make sure all retailers stay with it. So it's been a good kind of making it an equal playing field. And I think, it's opened up new businesses with the opportunity to kind of leverage new ways of doing Google Shopping that probably weren't open to.
How does it compare to like the US in terms of the CSS market out there?
Yes, there's no CSS market in the US at the moment. Hopefully you believe the DOJ or someone will start to follow the same case. There's various other cases kind of coming against Google at the moment. So we'll see. Obviously, if that opens up, that's a huge opportunity for CSSs, and I think would really be beneficial to that market. Currently
they have CSS, right? But it's not Google CSS. So they have we wouldn't call it CSS, but it's more like marketplace, right?
Yeah, but you can't have two people bidding the carousel for you.
Right.
So the difference in Europe is brand A can have their own merchant center, completely owned by them with Google going direct. You can have RedBrain with their own merchant center, completely separate, and both merchant centers can push products into the carousel. In the US, that you're only allowed one merchant center. So the brand obviously owns their merchant center. So there is not really the same, because a lot of the value in a CSS comes from taking that feed and optimizing it and shaping it to be different to what the retailer's running. You have to, optimize titles and attributes to make sure that you are appearing for more high intent, more relevant terms. I think that's when you're working with a CSS partner on a CPA basis, that's the real value they should be adding. And if they're not adding that, then that's when you have to question, okay, how is this, how is this mutually beneficial? And I think, that's something we've always been big on. Hence the engineering base from day one was like, right, we need to build a system that optimizes for clicks and ultimately sales.
So brands, retailers, this is going to sit alongside their in-house Google Shopping program. So it's probably a good springboard into like the elephant in the room, which is cannibalization, which is the topic which you and your team probably get questioned on every single day. It's what we get questioned on from our clients when it comes to CSS. So you have a bit of a contrary view on this?
My fellow CSSs might not be happy with me after this, but there's ultimately a Google mechanism that contributes to this no cannibalization. That when you speak to CSS, it's about there's no cannibalization, and that is essentially for a brand. If you've got product in a carousel, let's say it's a black Nike trainer size 8, certain model, the CSS can't have that same product next to you go into your same page. The auction doesn't allow it to happen. So that stops the kind of Dutch auction bidding up against yourself. That is completely true. That is there in play. But I think when CSS is used, the no cannibalization quite broadly, it also gets a lot of pushback from in-house teams. So like, well, but you're taking clicks.
If you beat them.
Exactly. In general, there's probably 20 carousel spots, I believe, on average for every search term. So you start to look at it and go, okay, well, from an outranking perspective, if the CSS's ads are appearing in front of the brand's ads on I'd say north of 20%, then that is a version of cannibalization. You are pushing their ads further down the carousel. And so actually that potentially is sales that they were getting that you're now taking. I think that's when you have to have the open conversation of, A, what number are you happy with at this level? Because you're never going to get 0%. The only way you get 0% is if you only let the CSS run zombie products and things you're not doing anything on, where it's like, right, that's completely fresh. If you are running, there has to be an accepted kind of risk into that. And it's like, okay, actually, we've been driving sales on these products. That's our cost of sale. What's your internal cost of sale? And then it's down onto the teams to work out, actually, where do we want to do that? We do a lot of elasticity testing with eBay, which is, right, your demand's on, does that impact us? And what they find out is in certain categories, it pays to just have us run. Actually, their internal team will potentially turn off their activity because we can put budget over there. In other ones, they're like, actually, can you, not run in that area? And that's the same with all brands. Brands will come in and say, potentially, right, negative keywords, so we don't need to bid on this. And, I think negative keywords are worthwhile if you have a high level of carousel coverage. So if you're taking 60, 70% of the carousel on brand plus product, then, is the CSS adding much value into that? That's an argument, where you have to do the testing, which a lot of brands don't want to do with it. So, but if you're not getting that, if you're getting 30, 40%, you've got these big marketplaces coming in like your Temus, your AliExpresses. I saw Joy Buys just launched. All of a sudden, if you're losing a lot of carousel coverage to that, then the CSS is kind of a partner there. It's like, right, let's take over that carousel. Let's protect your digital shelf space. And if our ad's the one that gets clicked and converted, then that's kind of that's the partnership in play. We only get paid on clicks that convert. So our average conversion rate across everything is probably 5%. So 95% of every click we pay for, we never see a return on. That builds audiences on the retailer site. They might sign up for the newsletter. They might end up in the remarketing list where the retailer gets them on a retargeting ad super cheap. And actually, we were first clicking that funnel. We're never going to get paid on that. So I think it is understanding the mechanics of it and working it together. But yeah, I think just a blanket, we don't cannibalize is not, is not the way. As an industry, we keep building trust.
I think it's dishonest. That's great. Because
dishonest is probably a bit too far. I think it's what did I say before? It's the Charlie Munger thing. You show me the incentive, I'll show you the outcome. I think it's there is a mechanism where it isn't cannibalistic. And then there is the side of it where you go, okay, well, are you talking about outranking with that retailer? Or are you just kind of waiting for them to go? We seem to be getting a lot of crossover. And it comes from, well, I've just Googled and the carousel popped up for me. And it's like, and I saw your ads. And it's like, again, that's not really a fair way to judge
Not
it.
hard data, yeah.
You know, and most of our traffic's mobile, but everyone always looks on desktop. So when they're looking to see if you're, you know, so yeah, dishonest probably too far, but there's a level of being cute with it.
Okay, so let me rephrase it. Everyone's obviously incentivized to sell and get their incentive, like to your point. So, and what we both found like really refreshing. I mean, we already do it a lot with you guys, and all of our clients they're right for, and we'll get on to who's right and who's not. But if they're right for benefiting from a partnership like with you, then we will always be pitching that and encouraging it. That's why we've got this. We'll get onto it later. The Owen case study, which shows that, you know, I think RevWise, our agency, is one of the top agencies utilizing CSS. But that is a question that comes up, and it's great to hear even from you. So you're saying cannibalization in some cases, or in many cases, there will be cannibalization. However, what you need to do is look at, and tell me if I'm getting this right, look at what is the gain?
Yeah.
What's the net gain? If we're going to add 100 grand to bottom line sales, right, but we're cannibalizing 5-10% of stuff, then is it net positive? Is it massively net positive? And if so, then it's worth accepting that bit of cannibalization to get a greater pie.
Yeah, and it comes down again to the cost of sale. So, you know, as a brand, you should always set the retailer's the CSS's CPA below your internal cost of sale.
Right.
So if they do generate a sale and it is cannibalistic, it still costs you less than it would have done on average internally. I think then that's where the conversation comes into, okay, right, we're trying to get to this. We've looked at the numbers. Yeah, that's beneficial. Let's keep doing it. Or actually, you know, these products we actually perform really strongly on. So can you not promote those ones? I think that's where it has to be a two-way partnership. And, you know, I also kind of feel with it, a lot of the time you'll hear that a CSS will say, oh, you should only work with one CSS, one CPA CSS. I don't like that either, because you're putting all of your eggs in our basket. So let's say RedBrain, and I get my team, I'm like, right, make sure you get exclusivity with the only ones. You can't control what Google does in that merchant center. So let's say we're driving that 100,000 a month in, say, extra sales, and the brand's got used to it, and it's like, right, we're on target. Then all of a sudden something happens to our merchant center and Google suspends it, and it's down for 7 days. All of those sales disappear, like straight away. And it's like, okay, now the marketing team and the brand's like, where are they going to come from? You can't spin a CSS up the next day and it'll fill that gap. Whereas actually, you know, based on your size, you should always have a minimum of 2, I believe. You should have one that is your key partner, your core partner, and you should always have a redundancy one. Whether you have them at a slightly lower CPA or you just have a different product set, but you should always have that redundancy built in. So if anything happens, there's a partner that can fill that gap. And then, you know, you expand based on product catalog, I think.
And what are the key differences between the different CSS players out there? Like, how do you differentiate yourself from the others that exist on the market?
So I think one of the big differentiators from us, we've got a huge engineering team. So we're focused on building a system that adds value. You know, the tech system that runs in our background is to look at search terms, kind of take those keywords, go, right, are they relevant for the title? How do we, you know, structure the title to maximize clicks and impressions? How do we make sure that we're adding attributes into the feed that the retailer's not given us that are also relevant? So I think that's one differentiator. And then we also have a massive PPC team. You know, we've got north of 10 PPC people. We're hiring now. You know, if you're speaking to a CSS and they've got 700, 1,000 retailers running, and they've got 1, 2, maybe 3 PPC people, you know, there is a level of, okay, well, how much, you know, attention are those accounts getting? I think that's when you have the argument of, okay, how much value is this adding into the, you know, the big retailers? You are going to get value because those 1, 2, 3 PPC people will be, you know, they'll be in those accounts every day. But if you're in that SME range, you might not be seeing much in the way. And then it's okay, how much transparency are you getting back? So, you know, it's been a big thing for me for years. I spoke about this at PI Live, I want to say 2020, just like transparency is key for us. And it's taken us a while, but we've built this dashboard that allows the brand to just go and see our activity.
Because that's been a common complaint in the past, is it's this black box and they don't know what they're seeing. It's a lack of transparency, as you're saying, but you've built this dashboard now. Yeah,
it's ironic actually, because when PMAX came out, everyone complained about that being a black box, including CSSs, and while also maintaining a kind of similar black box. So yeah, we don't think there's anything in terms of seeing what search terms we're getting clicks and sales on, what products we're getting clicks and sales on. You know, we're just built in, and unfortunately, as with all things Google, they removed the API access, so we've had to build a clever way around it. building auction insights into it. So you can see our impression share, you can see our overlap rate, you can see the outranking share, like it's front and center. And we'll send you that weekly. It'll just get a snapshot that'll come out in an email. That's our next kind of development that we've got building now. But you just get a weekly email saying this is RedBrain's activity. You can see those numbers. Jump into the dashboard if you want more. Because again, dashboard's great, but you guys probably know yourself. Who wants to log into another dashboard? It's just like, and so it's kind of aligning with those. We want people to see stuff that they can't see in a network dashboard. So just showing them how much GMV we've generated. It's in there, but it's not front and center because they can log into Awin Impact and see, okay, that's what that's doing. We need to show what's the value of CSS as a channel.
Can I put you on the spot a bit? Yeah. And so we've got a few clients that come to mind, but one in particular, the Bottle Club, which is an alcohol retailer. In fact, it's run by a great guy called Tim. We've done podcasts with him before for the Owen podcast, and I know this because we speak to him regularly. They made a strategic decision to not run their own Google ads.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know about this.
No.
Yeah, but they're quite a big alcohol retailer. I mean, they get millions of page views. They're competing with like who's the big ones? Anyway, the Whiskey Exchange or these kind of guys. Yeah. They sell like, I'm not sure how many, but probably thousands, if not tens of thousands of SKUs of alcohol and pop and snacks and things. And so they would be right for a RedBrain partnership, right? Because of the amount of variety of stuff they've got.
Yeah.
But I think that our team right now is working on kind of trying to get more strategic with RedBrain, and Tim's been really involved and hands-on as well because he loves his data and his dashboards. But I think there's been there's been maybe a bit of a chicken and egg there.
Yeah.
How in terms of like being big enough for you guys to give that extra love to?
Yeah. It's a hard one. Again, as we'll go into numbers before, we go up as high as 12,000 retailers at any one time. So we have got a big team, but, same thing happens with us. I think often it's that initial conversation. I think, as we've talked about, RedBrain has a good relationship with you guys at RevWise. So actually, from our perspective, it's one of the things we've spoken about is we need to build around kind of agencies as well. So you might have with us 10, 12 clients, and some are going to be big and some are going to be little, but actually you should still get one account manager on our side, one point of contact, and kind of actually if you're like, we think this has really got legs, then we can invest the time into doing it. And I think from that perspective, it's one of the areas we've really focused on this year, hence why we're on a bit of a hiring spree at the moment as well, to build out the customer success team, build out a traffic team a little bit more to kind of really take that. But kind of so you guys kind of go, right, we've got one point of contact here and they're owning our account, and actually we can feel like we think this one's got legs. Okay, well, we'll put additional effort into it because essentially for us, the long tail often can lose money, and it's one of the unfortunate risks of our businesses. We're going to pay Google every day, and we're going to then hope that it comes back in. But I think that's where the partnership aspect has to come in. If you look at that and go, right, we think it's got legs, our team should be like, okay, we have run previously the Whiskey Exchange and it's been quite successful. Certain times a year, obviously more successful. And then I think it's working out the product split, because often what happens is you'll find, let's say they're selling really high priced bottles of whiskey. People will click it, but I'm going to buy it anytime soon. And then obviously from our perspective, those clicks have added up in cost. And then the system's gone, we're not sure whether this works. I think that's more where the back and forth has to...
Probably is what I've said to the team who's working on it on our side, and also Tim, and not that they need me to tell them, we've got people way smarter than me, like account directors on there, but keep creating that transparent feedback loop with you guys on what the actual like cost per sale targets on different sort of products as well. That if we can create that feedback loop, especially that given they're not doing much themselves in-house for different reasons, like could be a dream for you guys, because then you can get, really get the hard numbers and then scale up where you can.
100%. I think that data sharing of, okay, what are the best sellers? So let's tag those best sellers right now. Let's start with that. Let's give ourselves the best possible chance where if you're getting sales from other areas, they appear in the carousel. That should start building. And then it's like, okay, now it can start to, and I think they're the kind of success metrics that, historically we've been just give us a whole feed. Give us a whole feed and let us, work it out. And we do a lot of optimization on our side, but also sometimes it's you're letting Google kind of pick which products are appearing. And the moment they start getting impressions and then lots of clicks, Google just doubles down on them. Whereas actually you might have some bestsellers that there's less searches for, but they're going to convert more, and you know that. And then that's where that kind of system, Google then optimizes towards that, and then you can start to drip in the rest of them, and the account grows overall. And it's one of the reasons why we were the first to launch kind of multi CSS, where we'll have redbrain.shop running, but we'll also have shopping.co.uk running. And that was, well, we can optimize these products in a completely different way, and we can target them completely different, and we can actually exclude the products here. So we're not just pushing both sets of products in. It's like, right, we're getting growth there, right? How do we get the next batch of growth in? And I think, that's kind of been successful for us in one of those areas where, but again, it comes down to conversation, and that is hard at scale. But I think, one of the things, and you guys obviously have met Matt, and he's in the case study, like that was a role we put in place of, right, we actually want someone who's the contact for agencies and because it's an important relationship for us. But we have to understand, you have got 10, 15, 20 brands, and some of them aren't going to be big as others, but they all matter to you. And so actually your cumulative value to RedBrain is how we judge you, not based on a per retailer basis. And I think historically it's been quite binary in terms of how's one account doing, and we used to have a situation where you might have 3 retailers, you got 3 different account managers on our side. And so actually,
that's really, thanks for saying that. And I was actually going to corner you after this pod and ask you in private, but I decided just to stick it on you. And I was really happy with your instinct there as well, because I think that's what I was going to suggest is I don't know how you guys are set up, but I think we're at the scale now. We've got over 90 programs that we run. Obviously enough of them, lots of them are on RedBrain, but I think we could be maximizing way more for our clients and for RedBrain if we got smart and centralized. But you're already thinking that, so that's great. And Bottle Club's just one good example.
And Tim will be happy to hear that we do actually have that in motion right now. And Liv has a meeting with, I think, your commercial director and Matt.
Yeah,
but Skimlinks is a good example of this. So Skimlinks are kind of the same. We now, it's a bit different now for us, I guess. But for even when we had 50 clients, and we had a certain number of clients, and it just didn't. They have obviously, like you guys, a ludicrous amount of brands that they're sending traffic to. So they need to look on a brand by brand case, and we as an agency are looking at obviously everything on an agency basis. So I don't know they've quite solved that, and they're getting the most out of certain agency opportunities. We're still working on a strategic level with them, but I think with RedBrain there's a bigger opportunity to do that.
It's the blessing and the curse of data, unfortunately, because what happens is everyone overanalyzes the data at a granular level. So it's things get split up, and it's whereas actually it's we'll roll it all up, and let's just say in our CRM, RevWise is essentially the account, and then go, okay, what's the top level number from RevWise? Right, that's a hugely valuable relationship. So yes, there's going to be varying factors in there, and we're as a business going to spend different amounts of times on certain brands you're working with, but ultimately our job is to grow the relationship with you guys, so you're delivering value to your clients. And and then when it comes, you bring a new brand on, you should immediately be of course we want to work with RedBrain, because we know that's going to get the care and attention. I think again, I know we're probably going to touch on it. Everyone thinks you can kind of automate and kind of still maintain the high levels. And it's actually, when you start to dig into it, you go, okay, there's a few gaps have appeared there where we probably didn't realize that was going to happen when we started to rank things in a certain way. And so, we've kind of tried to roll it back to go, relationships are key. And actually we need to have more people in a key account management role, and then also kind of make sure that we're building those relationships with you guys. And
and that's why I think we've always believed as well, we need to make sure that we're working actively with the partner rather than stacking 7 CSS partners onto one program, which is what we sometimes see when we pick up programs. Why is that a bad thing?
Often just inventory. So what people do is they've got, let's say they've got 5,000 products, and they already have, say 10, 20% of them they do really well on. And it's right, so they throw it out and they put all these CSSs on. And essentially what happens is everyone goes after the same inventory, because almost, it's and then everyone gets very diluted data. And then what happens is lots of CSS go, it gets put down to the bottom. Whereas if you went, right, we'll start with 2 partners and we'll go, we might even split the feed, or we'll go, right, one of you's getting zombie products and one of you's getting our best sellers. Yeah, they're great, but we don't have great carousel coverage. So we're going to go, right, partner there. And then what you do is you let it run, work out what the levels are. And then you go, is it worth us adding a third one? Yes, no. If you've got a huge inventory, then I think you then should start adding, because there's so many more opportunities for products to surface. But often what happens is just everyone gets thrown at the same time. It's like a race to the bottom. You get CSSs, and what will happen is they'll undercut for a while because they want to get the volume. They want to be, maybe they can come back and say, oh, look at the volume we're delivering now. Can we get a CPA increase? But then at some point, they have to optimize for, margin on their side. And then that's when it starts to squeeze. And then you're going back to them and going, well, where's the volume gone? It's like, oh, it's actually just because they've come in at a kind of, very, very low to gain the business because they know there's 3-4 of the CSS is running. And then it's like, internal pressures. Cash flow in this space is, never the greatest. And then those pressures combine. It's like, okay, I've got to put my own internal ROAS up because we need to now start making margin. The problem you get with that is, from a brand perspective, they see boom, then down, then boom, and it's like, actually, you just kind of want
rhyme or reason.
Yeah, you want the stable line, and you'll ask, and you could ask all 7 CSSs, and they'll have a different reason why it's happening that way. And that kind of, it's often internal things that the CSS has done. And so we kind of do believe never just one. Like, you should always have that redundancy built in, but then based on your product feed size. So eBay is a perfect example. 700 million products. I think they've got 15 CSSs running in the UK. It works for them, and they look at the numbers, they do lots of tests, and they go, right, it's net positive to us. But they are also one of the rare advertisers that do analyze it very, very closely. They also know if it's starting to be diminishing returns, they will cut back a little bit. And I think often CSS is almost seen like the silver bullet. I mean, the sales pitch there, isn't it? Like, sales from Google Shopping, no risk, only pay when you generate a sale. Why would you not put 7 of them on? Like, well, let them all fight it out. But what happens is they all end up fighting it out. They all get very small areas of the pie, unless one really goes, undercuts everything. And then all of a sudden, the rest of them kind of just put it on autopilot or turn it off or, as an internal business, we have a cost threshold of we're willing to spend X. And if it's all loss making, then at some point the system has to go, right, we recommend this gets turned off. We'll reach out to the retailer and say, look, this is where it's at. And the problem is often if we can move the CPA, that would be beneficial. But when you're asking to move the CPA, there's always why do you need more? And
does it change per sector, that sort of allowance that you give a brand and the spend that you have?
Probably based on tier of retailer, to be honest. Like, if you're bringing on a top 100 retailer, you probably know they've got a lot of products. You're probably going to have to spend more to be able to get through it. But we remove the kind of it being an actual cost amount of like, right, it hits, let's say, £250, then we're done. It's because actually some retailers, that's not a lot of clicks. A lot of times. So actually it has to be on, right, has it had a decent amount of impressions? Like, is it above 10% impression share? That's the first metric. Yes. Okay. Right. Now, where's the click share at? Okay. Now we've got and then we'll even go in and like analyze the products and go, okay, do these products make sense? And often you'll find sometimes it's 1 or 2 products that have just taken off and they're just killing the budget. And so you can exclude them. So we try and, if you were asking me 4 years ago, it would have been very almost binary of like, right, we've hit to this point now, right, it's going off. Whereas we've built our system to kind of go in and go, right, what search terms are taking all the clicks but not converting? Okay, what products are? Start to negatively match them. And then we try and give the account as many chances as possible to succeed. Because ultimately for us, we want as many retailers to be using CSS and getting value out of it and it be net positive to them.
That's one of the things I asked you in our pre-pod meeting was like, how much will you guys lose before you say this ain't working?
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, my CFO is not happy with me sometimes on some of the gambles I'm willing to take. But I do, sometimes it takes time. Like sometimes you can just get one and it just takes off from day one. You're like, oh wow, But I think even if you're running an eBay, like it can take time. So there's so many products. It's like, okay, your merchant center ad account starts with no history. So there's nothing, Google knows nothing. Even though it knows those products sell over there, it doesn't apply it to yours. So you have to be willing to kind of go, okay. And that's why we went to an impression share metric, a click share metric.
So how much would you lose?
I can't tell you because it depends.
What about like okay, I'll give you 2 examples. Right.
If I give you a number, I'm going to be having advertisers going to me. Well, how much have you spent on us?
Yeah, fair enough. Don't have to give me a number then, fine. But we're talking like, I think you said something on the call, like you got it, it's rather than a cash amount, it was a click amount, right?
Yeah, clicks.
So 1,000 clicks or something, isn't it?
So we aim for 1,000 clicks. And if you get all 1,000 clicks in a day, also not a useful metric. So we have to adjust that a little bit. So we'll generally run at least 30 days. and minimum of 1,000 clicks. And then we can start to see.
Because I 1,000 clicks of a milkshake ain't too bad.
Yeah.
But I met recently with a seriously fine wine, luxury wine company, the likes of which I didn't even know existed, selling bottles for hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
The clicks on that.
So we have historically sold a £300,000 watch, and then you don't get the commission for it. I guess it's removed back.
What's the click cost on something like that?
Well, it was it was probably, it was expensive, but it wasn't like hundreds of pounds. It's probably, I think it cost like £6.56 or something.
Okay.
And what you realize is because of using automated bidding with Google, some of your best converting clicks will be £1 or £1.50, but actually they make the margin back. And I think, in our old days with the price comparison site, we sold a helicopter on eBay. We did get paid for that one. But yeah, the problem you got with those is, 1,000 clicks, but 1,000 clicks of that wine is probably going to take you 6 months potentially, because the market searching for it is very low. And then you often find if someone's buying wine that expensive, they're on the phone to the person who's
and all
doing
the clicks are coming from Knightsbridge as well.
Yeah, it's so it exclude the postcode. But so what you find is often with products like that, the clicks you're getting are just people going, they search for something and that's appeared, and they're like, "It's how much?" And they click it purely from their, I don't know if I should bring the story up.
Stop clicking.
We had an incident with a brand a few years ago where we had this. They asked us to negative match this product. And we're like,
sorry, what does that mean?
So you negative match where you say basically Google can't push this product. So it gets negative matched in the, you exclude it kind of almost out of stock.
From your
so
campaign.
It doesn't appear, yeah. And it was a festival device for women to stand up and you can work the rest.
The shiwi.
Yeah. Essentially it was one of those.
Yeah.
The CTR was through the roof on it. The conversion rate was through the roof on it, but that wasn't selling. But once people ended up on the brand site, they were just saying, "Oh, I haven't bought that," so they'd go and buy that. But the ad, it was absolutely. But if you looked at the products, you went, "How many sales we got?" None. But actually, but then the brand's like, when people are searching for our brand name, this is appearing because the CTR was so high. Google were like, right front. It was like the first ad every time, and then that's when you have the awkward conversation. It's like, it's your product, like it's not. We didn't put it there, but yeah. So you can. And that's the thing as well with CSS. A lot of the products and things that we get clicks on are gateway products. So I think, it's not a proven stat, but I think people say it's about 60% of the time, the product you click on is not the product you buy.
Interesting.
Because the recommendation widget, or they haven't got your size actually, and then you end up going somewhere else. So yeah, you can look at products and go, oh, they're converting really well. But then when you get the data out, you're like, this product never sells. So how's it? And it's combining those two bits together and going, actually, that's a great ad because it gets people's attention, they click, but it's still beneficial to the retailer.
Yeah.
Because what you could do is go, we're just going to try and push the product that sells. Well, actually, you're then probably going straight into a head-to-head race with the brand. That's not helpful to the brand either. Like trying to surface clicks and impressions in areas they wouldn't get them is where CSS adds value.
My ADHD brain is like flying around right now. So this isn't in the research, but I just think it's really interesting to give you a quick fire of like, can you remember? So you've sold a 300-gram watch in your maybe not RedBrain, but the whole sort of like shopping CSS shopping comparison industry on a commission only basis. You've sold a 300-gram watch. You sold a helicopter. What other weird and wonderful stuff can you remember that you might have sold?
So I can't. So the only reason I remember the watch is because the commission should have been way higher than what we actually got paid, and then you realise it was capped in the network at, I think it was £999, and I presume that was a cap that was put in at publisher level, because when would a CSS ever sell something that was going to generate more than £1,000 worth of commission? We sell so much weird and wonderful stuff. It's like it's. I think the big thing for me, and maybe a lot of I'm not massively into cars. The big thing for me when I started working at RedBrain was the sheer volume of car parts that eBay sells. Like almost like it is a car parts site to a certain degree. It's like, car parts, collectibles, and then it was fashion for a while. Although fashion sales, overall at the moment have dropped. But you kind of realize a big site like that, and it's, the Pokemon cards, but then it's the car parts, and car parts are just historically a nightmare because the manufacturers put their logo 1,000 times on every image. Well, of course, that doesn't get approved in Google. So, and I don't know where that started in the car parts game. If one manufacturer or was annoyed with a wholesaler taking all their images, but yeah, it's like, every minute inch of it has got their watermark all over the top of it.
I never think of this stuff. I mean, but this is interesting. You mentioned like car parts must be a huge part of eBay then.
Yeah,
but
massive.
That's so true of many companies where, big giants where the money is made in the unsexy stuff.
Yeah. Oh, always, yeah. And I think you're seeing it more and more now where every big retailer is now a marketplace. Do you know what I mean? And actually, when you look at the split, you go, okay, how much of the sales are coming from marketplace products versus, what's available in store, for example, that you could, if they will walk into the shop, what they see on the shelves and it is completely different to what's actually selling. And yeah, I think it's an interesting place because you kind of like, at what point do we have every retailer has all the same products? Because they're just all a marketplace with a third party, 3PL, handling all the distribution. But it's like, it doesn't matter what brand you go onto. It's like, everyone's got, and then does it just come down to, well, I'm a X brand loyalist, so I'm going to buy all my stuff from them.
And there's like a community element to it. Like my dad, for example, like I know he's a massive car tinkerer, so he gets all his little things from there. But he also reviews everything, and he reads the reviews and really like values them. And I wonder if that's sort of the future as well. It's that mixture between the commerce community, marketplaces and community as well.
Yeah, I think there's going to have to be an additional human element because the AI revolution is probably going to remove a lot of that to a certain degree, where people are just going to throw in a search and it's like, oh, I've read the reviews. Which ones? Doesn't matter. I've found you this and that way. Whereas actually, your community level aspect for certain definitely things is going to be, okay, I want to go and listen to what someone else who had it said to me, not what's been collated and is that answer actually real or is it, been 6 reviews merged together to give me this best ever review? Like this is the must-have product that I need.
That's why creators is coming through as just like the most important new piece of performance marketing to ever exist for what you've just said, because they might not be that easy to track, but they're definitely, you want to actually watch someone talking about the products who's got it in their hands.
Yeah, and then I guess from your tracking perspective, the problem is they then go to Google you get no attribution for that part of it, but it's like actually that bit of that education piece is massively valuable in the and so what we actually have been seeing this with LLMs, LLMs for the last 12 months, the death of CSS, the death of Google, etc. What you find is people are letting it do all of its research and then they can never actually find the product. So they take the product and they paste it into Google. And actually, you're probably getting much lower down the funnel users because they've already done all their research or got frustrated. I just need to go and find it. And so they put the product in, the carousel appears and like, right, finally I can click somewhere that's got it.
I do a ton of research and my wife's just a complete super user of ChatGPT now. I mean, even to the point we've got a robin's nest that was made in our garden over like the last week. I haven't told you about this.
No, I'm looking forward to seeing it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, one of the robins, bless them, is gone. She set up
the nest's full, or
so basically, I'll take us off piece here. But basically, this the nest. I've got a barbecue area. I've got my barbecue and stuff, and this I got a cover and everything. This awning, I suppose you call it, a lean-to. And my wife was just like doing some pottering the other day, and she found the most amazing nest that's been built. It looks, I've never seen it up close like that. It's so impressive when you see it. It's like these robins are tiny, but this nest is quite impressive and it's so detailed. And there were 2 little chicks in there, brand new. And my wife does a video. She's leaning over, like taking a video. They're looking up and they're like trying to get they want a worm. And it was amazing. My kids are obviously, they're 5 and 4. Yeah. This is the most amazing thing ever, right? So they're obsessed with these chicks. They've named them. And we did, so OpenAI, ChatGPT, my wife's on it every day, sending photos. It's like, that's a good nest. Usually explaining what to expect. And it's been right every time, obviously, because it's AI, it's correct information that's in there. But she's using it like crazy. Yeah, sorry, back to the one of them's gone. She set up a nanny cam. She's put a nanny cam not too close that it disturbs them, but it's filming 24 hours and she's got it on her phone. So
were you the first user of ChatGPT in your household?
I got her onto it.
You got onto it?
And I got onto premium. And then I recently told her to turn off the data collection setting. She didn't know about that.
Did she ever put up resistance to using it in the first place?
Well, not that she put up resistance, but she was uninterested until I found a live use case.
Yes, I was listening to a podcast about this, about cynicism for AI in the beginning, but then they become believers. And the reason for that is just actually having the best use case, the most relevant use case for that person. It's all about education, like you've been talking about, and storytelling. It's the same with my other half as well.
She's using it.
She is now just everything.
Everyone has a moment where they go, the switch goes off in their head, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, my wife is using it like crazy. That's one such example, that we know what to expect now. One of them's gone.
But it is that use case, isn't it? People are using it to get a specific purpose. Like, I want to redo my kitchen, etc. I want this, I want that. What's the best way to do it? And kind of you get in 90% of the way there, whereas historically you go, let's say, to a kitchen showroom, and they would give you what they think you kind of want. Whereas I think you're kind of problem solving 90% of the way there, and you feel more comfortable because you always get stuff back from, that's not really what I wanted. And I find it with when you're working with engineering teams, in your head you've got this idea of what you want to build. It's like, all right, and then they take the request, they can, oh no, actually I wanted it. Whereas now I'm doing all that myself, and I'm building this Yankee prototype, which I'm sending to them and going, right, that's what I want it to do. Now make it amazing. And
make it not a Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah, make it actually usable, but actually these are all the bits. And I think that problem solving bit back and forth is so beneficial.
I think you're right, because, I use it a ton, but I've never once clicked onto a site. It's shown me product listings as well when I've been asking about things. I've never once clicked out on it. That's OpenAI, ChatGPT. Someone's going to crack it. Probably be Google or Gemini, because it's already getting the search volume. But I think you're totally right, and it's an interesting take on it. It's that it's a research layer for affiliates. It's great for us because it's not, unlike SEO, which doesn't like anything, no follow or commercial. It's taking everything, and most of that now is commerce content. Review articles by legitimate publishers. We're fighting on behalf of our clients to get those inclusions. So although it doesn't get reflected in the tracked, we don't get paid off tracked anyway. We get paid for our value that we bring to them to grow their business. So we're not too bothered about that. But I do know that there's definitely a lot less search, a lot less organic search traffic, right, as a result. But how do you think that's going to play out over the next few years?
So I think like you say, naturally organic search traffic go down, but I think a lot of search traffic is because you never get the answer the first time, or the top. If you go to Google, the top ads are Reddit, and then you scroll through. I'm bored of this already. Right, go back. There's got to be whereas in theory with this, it's kind of distilling it all for you, and you feel like you're getting a better understanding. Although I did see an interesting comment from someone the other day where it's like, for stuff I know nothing about, it knows it like the back of its hand, but for stuff I know about, it's absolutely useless. You get caught in that bit of, am I bought into the hype a little bit? Whereas like, this is an amazing answer, but actually, if I knew that subject inside out, how would it be? But yeah, I think ultimately it's the same as everything. SEO, paid ads. From our perspective, it all comes down to the foundations, and that's good product feed, and that's working with brands to say, right, we want to surface your products wherever someone is searching for them, and wherever there's a click available, we want to make sure that we're there for you. And shopping's our specialism. It's all we do. So we spend all of our time in shopping. We're not doing anything else. We're not doing, it's just completely shopping. So we look at it, we go, right, how do we make this product listing better? Like, what's it missing? Okay, right, how do we now get that? And AI is freeing some of that up. You can go, okay, I can go and enhance that now. I can go and pull these attributes that weren't there before. And go and find reviews, and you can kind of consolidate that together. And that's where shopping.co.uk came from, really. Was like, actually, that's the baseline front end for us. The underlying database is where we're spending all of our time, but we actually need a unique front end to test in the UK. Again, you go back to Doug. He's like, I bought this domain. You're like, okay. And then, you're like, how much was it? And he's like, I'm not telling you. And then all right, it was expensive.
Shopping.co.uk.
Yeah.
That would be, when did you buy that?
2 years ago, 2.5 years ago.
So it's going to cost so much money.
And because he's in the domain game, he knows everyone. So it will have just been some back and forth emails, and someone will go, yeah, you can have it for this.
Do you think it was seven? Would it be 7 figures, right? It has to be.
It's got, I presume so. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he's a great haggler, and
both can be true.
Yeah, he's convinced someone on a dream.
You might go from 10 mil down to 2.
Yeah, but yeah. So we were like, right, we need a front end for it, and actually, let's build out the product database properly. And I think it was more around where the future's going, and ultimately, in the gold rush, the picks and shovels people were the one who made all the money, weren't they? The people chasing gold, few of them hit big, most of them that made nothing. So we want to make sure that the rails are in place for whatever the traffic source is or we're searching. Agentic commerce, who knows where that goes, but they've still got to find the product somewhere.
Didn't they announce recently, we've got a note from our operations manager, I haven't looked into it yet, but it was like on last week saying that OpenAI is basically pulling back from their original plan.
So the deal they got with Shopify, yes. And then I saw something yesterday where a guy had found basically what was like a Google shopping part of ChatGPT. And I think I've bookmarked the tweet and not gone back to it. But so whether it's true or not, but I think, who knows? I think agentic's an interesting one because it still comes down to trust, doesn't it? As humans, are we just going to let the agent, and there will be 5% of the population will let the agent do whatever it wants because they are 100% into the dream. But the rest of the population, like even now, people don't like putting their credit card details in on online stores, let alone.
Yeah, I mean, you've got like TikTok, marketplaces are popping up and all these big platforms and everything. And when it comes to trust, you've got influencers, creators pushing the products on those platforms, and that's obviously becoming huge right now. 10 years ago, everybody was just searching for everything on Google. So there's been a shift. Do you still see Google as like the dominant platform in 5-10 years time?
Yeah, 100%.
For product search?
I think you talk about TikTok and it just makes me think of my son, 15, he searches it up. And like those 3 words drive me insane. Like you Google it because Googling pays for all your hobbies. It's but and that's the thing, isn't it? Like there's a generation of people who Google stuff. It's just what they do.
I'm a Googler.
I think like I'll use LLMs. I use ChatGPT to do shopping research. I'll click the link just to want to see where it goes. Is it out of stock? Those. But I'll still Google's still my fundamental point. I'll go to right. I want to buy something now. And I think so. There's a generation of people that just the behavior change takes so long that you're probably 10, 15 years away from them even being at the point of trusting it enough. And then you'll still have a generation of people that do it. So yeah, I think next 10, 15 years, Google will maintain dominance and they have distribution, which I think is always the key factor in this. And I think the other part of it that we're kind of all in the nirvana of AI at the moment is like the costs are going to go up at some point. Like it's being heavily subsidized at the moment by, at some point, those searches, or you're almost going to be paying per search, or your pro plan that's £20 is going to be £200. And it's like, and then that's where it shrinks down again. And people go back to Google will probably keep theirs free, because the ad model pays for everything. So I think, unless the others can pivot to a strong ad model, I think, and you look at it, you kind of go, okay, well, Anthropic's going more B2B, like we want to be the rails for people building stuff and, the dreamers to build their own. And then I think OpenAI is in this kind of weird middle ground at the moment where they haven't really got great distribution. They've got a decent, but they don't own much of anything. And if Google cuts off their data, it's like the data goes stale at some point. So how do they keep fulfilling that data part without anywhere to get it from?
Do you think that Google Gemini will roll out PPC ads?
Yeah, 100%.
Do you know, when do you think that will do that?
I think it might have even been in test mode in the US in AI overviews at the moment.
Really?
And then that will roll into the free, because for most people it'll be free. It'll roll into the free version. And to be honest, I think even with Google, the pro versions will keep ads in.
Will that create a boom in PPC, or will it be replacing traffic that's recently been lost to Gemini?
I think it'll just be circulating. So yeah, it probably, if you're losing it now, because when an AI overview, for example, loads within Gemini as well, it's like it's got some bits and you click out to it. But the moment the ads are in there, you're going to get the carousel. So you're going to get the best of the best should be appearing there. So I think it will replace. And again, it just comes down to, I think Google probably are overdoing the ads a little bit at the moment. If you land on the search page, there's like every opportunity to shoehorn a new ad box in, and we benefit from a certain, because there's loads of shopping ones in there. But if they start doing that in Gemini, I think it's going to be a difficult one. So I think it's going to be very tailored, and then you might find that the CPCs are super high, and so actually it's only going to be the brands running it themselves, and then that makes that kind of almost Google search being a long tail kind of one for people who aren't using Gemini. But I think it's interesting times. We'll see where it goes.
Definitely interesting times. I mean, where does the affiliate industry fit into all of this, do you think? Like,
Do you know what? And this is the thing. I think there's lots of things with affiliate where I go, oh, it's outdated. We need to. But innovation is not one of those things. I think affiliates are great innovators. They always constantly have to adapt. Even in our own industry, we constantly have to adapt to, okay, what's Google going to do next, or what's going to happen over here. And I think so. As an actual space, I think we'll be ahead of the curve on it and almost be the proof case for it as an industry. And then from there, brands will eventually catch up to a certain, but then it'll have shifted to somewhere else. So I actually think it'll be massively beneficial for some areas of affiliate. I don't know how others will see through, but I think it's probably a good kind of rebirth of the industry as well. I think a chance for it to kind of, go into a new, have more kind of weight and value in the industry.
The performance and partnership model, the CPA, has never been more kind of pertinent, in vogue and hot, I think.
Yeah.
Adam Ross gave us a great soundbite. What did he say? If the companies are going to emerge with AI at its core, are going to be driven to provide the best experience for users, then the only way to do that is to get paid when they make a sale.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I don't know if you saw last week, WPP came out and said that they're going to be outcomes focused moving forward. And I think, huge revenue, if you look at their share price, kind of constantly plummet. And it's because that age of, almost it's a throwback to the Mad Men days, isn't it? You pay us for the value we bring in creative and kind of those things. I think brands, especially now, are like, well, what do we get from it? And then you look at kind of us guys we've always been outcomes focused. Now it's like, it's the buzzword to say. We're like, well, we would be here if we weren't outcomes focused.
Yeah. I literally started, I'm 36 now, and I started quite young, like in, I think 18, working at Haymarket and then The Guardian.
Yeah.
So I started in the non-outcomes focused space where it was like, you just be selling off of inflated. So I'd sell a quarter page, double page spread, full page, print media. And you're basically selling off of the quality of your audience, then what jobs they have and their average salary. And then you sell off an inflated readership number. I was explaining this to someone recently. You've got your circulation, this, but like say it's 100,000, this magazine goes to 100,000. We print 100,000 copies and get sent there. But the average person said 5 years ago in a survey that, we surveyed people, like maybe they said that they passed it on to 4 people in their company. It was trade press.
Yeah.
So now we've got 500,000 readership. So it's all just inflated bollocks.
Yeah.
And excuse my French. It's a bit much, isn't it? It's all a bit inflated nonsense. And, brand is no idea if it's driving, if it's driving the value that it should be. And I was training and that seems so bizarre now, because after that, I then got into the performance marketing world, and that's where you and I have a lot of shared connections, don't we? That was performance marketing, lead gen, search, native advertising, arbitrage. All of that was always back to a CPA. Everything comes back to a CPA, right? Even what you were doing, buying traffic from Google, from Taboola, Yahoo, Outbrain, Rev Content.
Essentially selling it to Google
but you were selling
ads.
You were basically selling it to Google, right? So I was going to say you're buying traffic, clicks, because you were really good at creating content that people wanted to click on that was not selling anything. Might be some celebrity foul or
honestly, what was her name now? I can't remember. It was basically someone from the Brady Bunch, and it was like, what she looks like now is jaw-dropping. And
that you guys, that one done the rounds for years. I mean, I was sick of seeing that, but it was like you find a winning headline image combination. That then means that you can buy clicks super cheap, because all of the native ad networks work off of an eCPM, so an effective cost per thousand, how much they're paying their publishers. So if you can have some really clickable, this is where the whole like 10 things the doctors don't want you to know about this thing, that's where that all comes from, because it drives a huge cost click-through rate. So then the click cost can be lower. You get the traffic really cheap. You've optimized your page yield, all your ads, right? Google ads and everything else, probably more native units all around the page as well. And you're able to make more money off that click than you paid for it. But it ultimately only works for you if it works for the next advertiser.
Yeah.
And it only works for them if they get a CPA. So it's always back to a CPA for me, and like I know for you as well. So it's really obvious. But I was training someone recently, a new salesperson in our business who's got a great sales career, super smart guy, but he's new to marketing, So I was like training him up on the basics. Like we didn't even do affiliates. I'm like, if I'm an ecom manager or a CEO of an ecom brand, I want to drive sales. How do I drive sales? And I literally on the whiteboard in the office was like, I can do this. And I laid out every single route to market I could think of.
Yeah.
And then and I taught him what are the pros and cons of each. So I went billboard, TV, display advertising, flat fee, and then all the performance channels. So CRM, Google, PPC, SEO, et cetera, et cetera. And as I was explaining all to him, he was like, why would anyone advertise on a billboard then? And I was like, well, that's a good question. And why would anyone do, that's a good question. And that led us to talk about building the brand.
Yeah.
Right. That's why we say above the line. Right. And so we went on this big philosophical debate in the training, which showed me that he got it.
Yeah.
About exactly what you're saying, which is like it isn't measured, it isn't managed.
Yeah.
It's purely, so therefore the conclusion we came to, I said to him, like, you really only see big money spent, going back to your WPP thing, like the new Spider-Man movie or the Mercedes, got people that have got tons and tons of cash that don't transact online. Where else can they do their marketing?
Yeah, it's that whole thing, isn't it? I know 50% of my advertising budget's wasted. I just don't know which 50%. So that fear is what drives the carrying on doing it. Because like, oh, what if those billboards are the thing that then drive people to Google, and then we take, the ad gets the attribution for it, but actually without those sides. So, and I think there probably is some level of value from a brand perspective in some of these things, but because you can never manage it, it's a great way to just spend budget almost, isn't it? Of just like, we want to get eyeballs. Eyeballs is everything. And it's like, I do think it probably does work for like Mercedes or, being top of mind when someone's like, I do need to get a new car or, that way. But I think for a lot of brands, it's so low value, but they can't prove it almost because they're too scared to turn it off. And you every so often you see like, they've turned it off, but they always end up turning it back on somewhere else. But the headline is they turned it off and it made no impact. But then 3 months down the line, you see their adverts again, you're like, okay, so... But that never comes back on, well, by the way, actually 3 months later, we realised that it did have value, yeah.
That's because there's a lag, right, to turn something off to actually see its effect.
Yeah.
Another example I gave him was like FMCG, if I'm, what are these over here, party rings. If I'm party rings, like, I'm not selling online. I can't track a click. I can't see if my Google ads are working. I mean, maybe they are, but let's say they're not, like Kellogg's, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, what else am I going to do? I've got to just basically get mind share and go above the line and build brand. So those are the companies like, cool, be doing that. But all of the clients we work with and which is 90+% of, individual prospects or companies, clients, whatever, they're not playing in that space.
No.
They want to track it through to purchase. That's the whole reason we're all here.
Yeah. And it makes a difference. They want to be able to invest more in areas at work. So attribution and tracking is the key to that. And I think, attribution is probably another one of those topics that at some point needs kind of reviewing.
We get quite involved with our clients and their attribution with the different channels. So we're in the GA4, not just their affiliate networks. And I suppose you could say that like maybe a lot of the industry or a lot of the industry is pushing brands to maybe work with the more traditional affiliate types, because it is easily tracked and they don't have to have that conversation about the halo effect and what it's doing to the other channels. It's just easy to say, okay, we'll plug this one in and you can see the results, but it's not actually helping them too much necessarily.
Yeah, and I think obviously GA4 was that big switch where it went from being a tool for marketers to being a tool for data engineers, didn't it? And then all of a sudden you get reports and we had it. It's like, well, you don't seem to be generating any sales now. It's like, okay, right, go a level deeper than just Google. Because when it's saying Google, we're actually in that. And, you're then having to train people to go 4 levels deep in GA for something they used to get at the top level report. So, I think there, again, it's one of the bugbears of this space is that people don't do the deep dive. And I get it, people are busy. They're doing 6 different things and they just need a top level number to take to their boss to say, the budget is paying off. And it's like, okay, it's only when the granular conversations happen. It's like, oh no, we can't see that. And, we've had it with retailers where it's like, no, GA4, source of truth. Okay, right, well, we'll turn it off. So we turn it off. 2 weeks later, our internal sales are dropping. Like, but I thought you Google Ads was, driving all these sales. And again, it's just because, that switch, like, I hate going into GA4 now. Like the old one was so much easier, but maybe that's just because that's what I've kind of
used to
evolved on. But I don't want to be deep diving. But for a data engineer, amazing data science team, they love it. I mean, like, look at all this extra data we can pull out and spin into dashboards. But I think and actually maybe the LLMs make that easier because you can just query it and it'll go and drive the data out and tell you what you used to be able to see. But yeah, I think attribution is an interest, especially in our space, because you're kind of like, okay, well, we drove it all the way to checkout from search, and then at the last minute, and lots of them we don't. It's soft cookie, but with some it's still you get over.
Oh, you mean like vouchers and stuff?
Yeah. And some, it's in there. Obviously, there was the whole honey thing, which didn't help the space massively.
Well, me and Jamie, and all of our staff and team, we were actually. Do you guys familiar with the word Schadenfreude? German word. I think it means to take pleasure in someone's misfortune. Not at honey, but at the rest of the industry, when they were melting down over honey and all kind of putting their LinkedIn posts out and talking about it and all this new hot takes, we were just sitting back, watching it all burn, because we from day one, we've been going for over 3 years now, but from day one, we've never done any of that shit on our affiliate programs, on our clients' programs. It's because we're not incentivized to do it, because we don't get commission off of their revenue. Yeah. Like most agencies take a commission plus the retainer. Yeah. We've never done that. We did it very early on, and then we realized, oh, wait a second, we're now incentivized to make as much money from our clients' programs as possible. Our incentives are actually bumping up against theirs.
Yeah.
And so we just work for their bottom line interest. So therefore, naturally, there was never any interest for us having low quality stuff like toolbars and things on there.
Yeah.
So we've always been completely removed from that. And then when it all started happening, we were just sitting there like Mr. Burns.
Yeah. All the questions start happening, and people are like, oh, well, we didn't realize they would do it. It was all honey's fault. It was like, oh, I can't believe, and then it's been going on forever. And
you've been doing what?
Yeah.
They've been doing what? But even if they weren't, like, it was so clearly not valuable. Take RedBrain as an example. Like, if the soft click, hard click thing it wasn't in place, or on other networks where they don't have that, you guys are actually spending real cash. Like, you're spending you're spending money up front to drive quality traffic from Google for a partner, only to have that sale to get zero commission on that 300 grand watch because someone used the honey code.
Yeah. Well, auto put it in, didn't it? That was the...
Auto put it in, like, what a joke.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of one. It's just, it doesn't help the industry as a whole, does it? It's kind of just like, because the immediate thought is, well, are you all kind of trying
doesn't
to
help
do
the old
something?
industry, by the way. There's a new industry emerging, but like the traditional affiliate industry, that stuff was kind of like a cornerstone of it.
No.
Definitely doesn't help it, but it does help to kind of like speed up its evolution and decline.
Yeah, I mean, I did clickbait for 5 years, so I'm no angel. I've tricked people into 22-page views to get to the picture of the celebrity they wanted. Nature of the beast. But yeah, I think it's that especially in e-com, things are evolving. It's hard to get a user to click through to a site to go through, and you want to be able to share in that reward where you've generated value, and I think that is important, for us, because I think. When CSS started, it was kind of, we realized none of the networks are set up for the way it works, because it's like, oh, what? So you're almost fronting all of this money to drive users to a site, and then you have to wait, to get it done. And I think that for us was kind of like, hence why we built our system in the background, and why we probably in the early days had harsher rules on what went on, what went off. But because we almost couldn't go and find out what was overwriting, or you just have to make the hard decisions, and then you reach out. Sometimes you have the conversations, and they're like, oh, okay, actually we've got. We didn't have soft cookie in place, for example. So it's like, okay, we'll put it in place. And, we've just always said, try and treat our activity like from a DG perspective, you would your own internal PPC, because it is the same thing.
I was going to ask you this. When we're talking about attribution, like the affiliate channel is looked at as a channel, even though it's not really a channel. It's a mixture of different channels all working on a performance on a performance model. Do you guys get treated attribution-wise like the same as by a brand? Do you get treated like PPC, or do you get treated like, I think I know the answer. Do you get treated like affiliate?
Yeah. Probably a middle ground, to be fair. I think much more, but then it comes down to depending on how much volume you're doing. If you're doing a decent amount of volume, you can have the conversation. And I think, there probably has been a bit more of an evolution of it in the last year, I'd say, where it's a bit more open. But yeah, historically, you go through and you look at the decline reasons, just like, how is that allowed to be put in as a reason, let alone...
Yeah, so someone gets an email from, the Milkshake company that you're working with that I've made up. Someone gets an email from them. It's from the Klaviyo team at that brand, so CRM, right? So, and then that person gets the email, and then they actually open up Google and they search, and then they come through a RedBrain ad. that might end up that could get deduped by a really strict
that get the magic other marketing source reason.
Other marketing source, right? Which is fair. It's a double dip that happens, right? It's a multi-touch point sale, right? And that's fine. But if it was their in-house PPC team, would they potentially say, no, that was PPC all day long?
Oh, yeah. That would get attributed internally. 100%, I think, unless you've got someone who, has more power, who's kind of...
Does PPC then get special treatment in most businesses, do you think?
Yeah, because I think, I can't remember what the numbers are, but I think it's like 70% of sales come through, PPC and Google Shopping. So from an internal perspective, it probably is the number one revenue driver, in a D2C perspective. So I think it does take a lot of credit.
But I mean, from like commercial, from in terms of like how they're prepared to commercially flatter the numbers of PPC, is that to support the spend and the...
So I think GA4's been the big switch in it, because everything gets attributed pretty much to PPC a lot of the time now. So you can kind of do it that way. And I think that's kind of where, from our perspective, it's like, is there a... and I know Trade Tracker did this. I'm not sure how successful it was. Almost split attribution on certain things. Like from a CSS perspective, if you got a percentage of the commission, so not the full commission, but you got, let's say, even if it was like you got 25% of what your full commission is for delivering first or, basically last click before something else was used onto it. I think actually that goes back into the system. So you're then going to drive more activity because your EPC goes up. It's kind of like, and it's the bit where, okay, we converted on a retargeting ad. The original click was from RedBrain. So actually, if we gave them some money for that, they'll spend more. And actually, we're getting the low-hanging fruit. So we're going to get more sales where they've driven the cold click, and then we've picked them up. I think that's the bit that's missing. There's kind of that bit of almost like, and I think what they need to do is take CSS and put it into the internal paid media team and have it as like two different ways to do Google Shopping. And that's what we've seen with a couple of bigger brands recently doing with us. Like, we are now away from the affiliate part. We are in their performance team. So, our teams are having meetings with their, head of search, and it's kind of much more of a shared, okay, well, you do that and we'll do this. And actually that'll work for us. And I think that's probably the bit that CSS needs to work towards. And I think, again, that comes down to that partnership, that transparency, the kind of, once you've got trust, they'll put you in there. The moment you're deemed as competitive to them, the internal team is always a little bit more kind of like, standoffish, because they're like, well, you're coming in to take my sales. And I think actually it's like, no, we're combining together. How do we feed your pipeline? Because there are lots of people that aren't going to buy on the first click, but they will see the retargeting ad, and they'll click it and they'll come back to it. And that's absolutely, our model's built to absorb that. But actually, if there was a more aligned thing where they're like, actually, we could give you a bit of credit for that, because that sale cost us way less than our normal cost of sale. So even paying you a small additional commission means that we're way under cost of sale. But how do we get more of those? Because, every head of e-com marketing lead in e-com is like, right, you need to get more sales with less or the same budget. So it's like, how do you make that go further? And I do believe like CSS on a CPA basis is the way to do that. And I think it is just that, got to get on the inside and be more aligned.
You mentioned you're hiring right now. Is it those types of people or that role you're looking to hire for, like the customer success?
Yeah. So we're massively trying to scale up our customer success team and then just PPC team as well, and kind of give them access to, we've done a lot of work over the last few years on the system. AI does help make things more efficient, which means, from our perspective, a customer success manager, a traffic manager can manage way more accounts more efficiently because they've got all the answers in front of them, rather than having to go and individually look for accounts to go, okay, what's happening here is, they can almost, run a query and it'll bring all the insights back and go, right, you need to go and look over there, or, oh, this has changed. So, so I think that allows us to, by bringing up some more people in, we can 10x the availability and the response rate and the relationship level, because everyone's time drag is having to go in and find the information, like dig through the CRM here, right? Go and look at Google ads over there, right? Or go and check the merchant center, go and even check the network. Whereas actually, if you can ask the question, what's the anomaly in it? And it's like, oh, that looks the same. Oh, those products are now not in the feed. All right, now I can reach out to the retailer and go, these products have disappeared. Is that, was that intentional? And they can be like, oh, they've gone, or we don't want you to push them anymore. But a lot of it is investigating work at the time. So yeah, we want to hire more people, but give them more superpowers almost.
Cool. And as the leader of that group and these people who are having to do these investigations and come up against internal teams, and it's not always nice.
Yeah.
Like, how do you keep their spirits up? How do you make sure that they don't get too sort of dispirited and disheartened?
Yeah, I think the big thing for it is you just got to understand, you're not always going to get a yes. Like, and I think the team know that. Like, you can have the best pitch in the world, it can make perfect financial sense, but the person you get in front of just goes no, be it for personal protection reasons, just don't think it's right for the brand, and I think that's the bit of, as long as you've presented the best version of the information, like, it was never really going to change the outcome unless you played golf with them, say, which is not, it's like, so actually, as long as your pitch is working and you can kind of understand and you believe in it and you it's not full of fluff, and it's like, actually, you've got solid outcomes, you can show what's going to happen, like, then you're still going to get no 20-30% of the time. But actually it's that bit of, okay, well, let's have that conversation again, and you can circle back to it. But, I believe we have a great product. Like, I from a retailer brand perspective, I think unless you search your brand and the product and you have 85% coverage in the carousel, I think using CPA CSS is literally a no-brainer. And actually, it's our job to just prove that to people and kind of break down those barriers. But you're still not going to do it all the time. But as long as we believe in what we're doing, which I believe my team does, they see the value we add, they kind of really understand kind of what we're bringing to the market. Then, just keep banging on those doors. And at some point, someone will move jobs and you might get a yes, because they've had success with you at their previous brand. They've come in for a senior promotion, and, everyone who goes into a new job wants to have a quick win, don't they? And I always think RedBrain is that quick win. Like, if you go into a brand, they're not using it, you can be like, oh, right, have I got an idea here? Get it live, kind of, and then you've kind of already built up some credit in the bank with your boss, because like, and we weren't doing that before. So yeah, our job is to try and help as many people in the space as we can, help them perform, help them get their promotion. And then if that's internal, that's great for them. But if it's moving to another retailer, it's another opportunity for us. And that's how we build our pipeline, is just by delivering value to the people we're working with.
Well said. And I should mention as well, this ties into that quite nicely. So we published a case study, I think it was earlier this year or late last year, with RedBrain, RevWise, and Owen.
Yeah.
A three-way case study. And that was to really shout about, Owen, a big network partner to us. We manage across Owen and other networks hundreds of millions of tracked spend a year for about 90, approaching 100 different brands. Many of them are using RedBrain. We've been pushing for more. We've been having those conversations with clients once we understand their setup and how right they are for the model or not. We've been quite often bringing it in, championing it, and then quite often sort of looking quite good when it goes well.
Yeah.
Especially if they always know about it, but they maybe weren't running it at scale before. Yeah. Then we've come in and bucked that, which we have to do, because we spoke about our big thing is sort of like just driving profit for our clients. And, the ways to do that are through sort of partners like RedBrain, CSS, obviously premium content creators, like working on really quality partnerships that are not that commonplace. They're certainly not ones that are going to just join your program automatically and just explode. So we think you're a really important partner. Owen actually brought this up because they came to our marketing team, I think, last year and said, hey, we've got these tags in our system that for every agency. And RevWise it was at that point anyway, I don't want to misquote them, but RevWise is like the number one agency utilizing RedBrain or CSS as a whole. When they look at the, how much of our clients' sales come from CSS, it was quite significant for RevWise versus other agencies. So they said, what are you doing there? And so maybe that's what sparked this. So we did a case study with you guys. We dove into sort of the numbers, some of our bigger clients, shared clients. So we dove into some of the numbers. Huge electronics clients, huge homeware, different sectors, where we got your team, got with our team, got with Owen, and said what stands out and pick some numbers out. So we had I think year on year, it's 136% more revenue for our clients by working with RedBrain from RedBrain. 37% increase to click-through rate, 44% conversion rate. And it was a really good case study to do, because it sort of got a lot of attention, I think, to this underutilized in some cases underutilized partner type, which is CSS.
Yeah.
And I would say, we've really enjoyed working with you guys, and kind of we've had a good amount of support there as well.
And I think it's important. And there's three entities in this case study, and they're all very pivotal in making sure that a brand is actually successful.
Yeah.
They all play their parts in that sort of story together.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. A great case study. And I know my team love working with your guys. And I think what works for me is the fact that you guys aren't incentivized by getting a CSS on to scale it. Like, you're getting it there because you think it is actually net beneficial for that brand to be working with it. And I think so from that perspective, it's kind of the growth is really genuine, because it's like you don't get any extra gain off it in terms of, there's not a financial uplift for you in that initial moment of doing it. So Correct. I think that helps, and I think that attitude towards it is like, we want you to do it because we think and we believe it's going to add way more value to you. And I think that is key for our whole space. The more people understand that, and the problem comes in whenever there's a commission involved. It's like, again, it's like, okay, well, why do you really want it on there? And I think, but with you guys, it's not tied to that. It's just a genuine, like, we believe this will help you grow your business as one of our clients. Let's do it and see. So I think that, that's a real, beauty of the case study and the partnership between the three of us.
Yeah, thanks. And our incentive is always to keep our job, get a pay rise by hitting targets, get expanded to new markets, which is happening a lot, which grows our total retainer size with the clients, and then get given extra influencer service, TikTok shop, etc. So very, very different, simple, but very different to I think most of our competitors, which are their incentive is just to get as much tracked as possible. Yeah, and the problem comes. Well, when, in the affiliate world with the way the tracking works, it's like there's lots of ways to do that aren't valuable to the brand. Yeah. And I think maybe that's what you're saying there is like we actually have to sell it in. And when we're working with RedBrain on our clients, we actually have to get the business case, make it robust, get the data, which you guys are great at providing, to optimize and then to prove to leadership that, this is a great way to expand reach on search and do it on a risk-off basis. And as far as the case study goes, that's been proven as a big success. So we're happy about that. Jamie's got some questions from real questions from our team members. Okay. So just to give you an idea of, I don't know how well you know the ins and outs, but we've got about 52 staff members at RevWise. Yeah. Most of them are affiliate managers, obviously. Yeah. Account directors, affiliate managers, senior affiliate managers, and execs. And they, I know we spoke about, we basically had an internal meeting here that I sort of forced upon us all, but was really productive earlier in the podcast. And you said we might look at maybe upping the levels of strategic management. But right now, I think everyone's got their own sort of, some people have got their own, learnings and questions and things. And we have internal meetings about you guys, about different partners that you wouldn't even know about. But these questions might come up, and Jamie's got them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the list has shrunk because we've gone over quite a bit of it already. Okay. So I've been thinking about this. We can clip them up, for the shorts. So quite simply, there's one at the beginning I want to kick off with. So what determines if a brand is a good fit for a CSS strategy?
So often the things you look at are the CPA in the category. So, from our perspective, we sit at kind of 10,000 foot view on a category. So we know what works generally, but it's not just CPA, because often the whole kind of theory is we just ask for more CPA, but it's not. It's based on CPA, conversion rate, and then once we start running CTR. So I think, often, a brand that's focused on its conversion rate makes a massive difference. You can actually run at a lower CPA if you're really focused on your conversion rate. So I think CPA is important. I think conversion rate, and then quality of feed from our perspective. Like, the initial quality of feed makes a huge difference. Like, we have got a system that enhances and enriches, but it still needs to have some level of the information there to do it. And I think, often people use third-party feed tools, and there's an additional cost to put that into the affiliate network. They still want to pay that additional cost, so you get this is what we've got, and it gets thrown in. So feed, then kind of conversion rate on site, and then obviously CPA is the dial, really, where you can really turn it up and kind of exponentially grow it when you feel like you've got it working.
There's a question here I was going to ask you, but I think you might have answered it there. Does a smaller brand simply have to accept a higher CPA to compete with RedBrain?
Depends how competitive the category is. So, but again, it comes down to their conversion rate. And I think, we built a Shopify plugin 2.5 years ago, to essentially kind of try and help some of these brands. And what you find is they're not doing anything for conversion rate. They're not doing anything for bundling. They're not doing anything for average order value. So they're kind of turning it on and hoping that it's the kind of silver bullet. And I think that's the thing. If that brand is kind of got a good product that's gonna work, our job is just to get it in front of that customer. So we can optimize the title for the right terms to get it in its area. So if there's demand for that set of products, we'll get them in front. Then it's just, essentially what they're doing on their side. So yeah, I think there's, bigger brands do generally do better because there's brand recognition, but smaller brands can work. And again, that metric is because the CPCs might be higher in that category, which is where their CPA is the thing that is going to allow us to kind of push them.
Does web traffic affect things at all?
Volume of web traffic. I think so, yeah, because that's showing the demand a lot of the time and often if people don't have a lot of traffic, they're not doing a lot of the other stuff on site. And I think that's the bit that's often missing. But you can have stuff that's got low, web traffic, and we start driving more of the traffic and it converts really, really well. Yeah. So it's a good indicator to look at to go, okay, are you then not running your own Google activity, or are you not, where's your traffic coming from? And I think a lot of the time you get brands that do really well on Meta, and kind of they go, oh, we'll just switch this on a little. But it's that difference in, Google is an intent platform, Meta is a disruption platform. So, people on Instagram are scrolling, they're not expecting to get what they get. And it's like, oh, that's interesting. And the creative captures them, whereas they've got to actually be typing for that product for the intent to appear in Google.
If someone's not, this isn't from the staff, it just made me think of it. If a brand is not doing any of their own Google ads, is that a red flag for you guys?
Not a huge, say an amber flag. So what you'll find often is the brands run it. They've followed Google's guidelines. They've put it on PMax. It's spent a lot of money and never actually got to, profitability or even break even. And so they've just gone, oh, it doesn't work for us, and they've turned it off. And I get that, most businesses, they don't want to hire a PPC person for that task on a whim. They might not want to pay the extra for an agency to do it. So they kind of, Google is now pitching itself as, oh, it's just, just turn it on and we take care of it. Don't worry about it. Tell us what you want us to hit and we'll hit it. And so I think, no, it's an amber flag, because it's either off because it doesn't work and you kind of, okay, or there's not enough demand, or it's just off because there is demand, but Google was just overpaying, and they weren't doing anything on their side to optimize titles. They weren't, so they were probably paying more for traffic that we can get at a lower cost because of the work we're doing in the background. So yeah, got 100% red flag.
Cool. We'll go with two more. So are there certain brands or retailer profiles where CSS just doesn't work? So for example, low margin categories or low SKU counts or certain pricing strategies?
Yeah, so low SKU can be a problem. But then not always, there's well-known brands that have less than 100 products, but they have the brand equity to kind of get it in there. I think low margin also works, dependent again on who the provider is. And again, the conversion rate of their site, there's electronics is a historically low category for CPAs, just is, based on the margins they've got with it as well. But then you also see the D2C versions come in. They've got much higher margins because obviously they've already wholesale sold the products to the other parties. So yeah, low SKU can be a problem. And, we generally, we did have a rule for a number of years where if you didn't have 500 products, we would say no, because our data was saying those retailers, it was 1 in 100 ever worked. Actually, as Google's got better and our technology's got better, we have started to remove that because actually we can see the data. But there was a time where we were turning on probably 500 a week. And, again, I have to have the battles with my CFO around, what's acceptable risk on what we're doing. So yeah, that can have an impact.
Okay. And we'll finish off on a technical one. How can incorrect or missing identifiers affect campaign performance or product visibility?
So GTIN, for example, if that's missing, you get a penalty in the auction. So you're essentially having to pay, no one knows what the amount is. You have to pay more to get the same impression that you would have got if the GTIN's there. And it's one of those, Google's got the biggest product database in the world because they know there's no GTIN when there should be. They won't share it. So in theory, you think they go, there's no GTIN there, it's this, and we've populated it for you because you're a paying customer, you're giving us money, like it help. But if there's a penalty for you not having it, it's great for them to just flag it as being there. So yeah, it can have a a big, because it all comes down to quality score, and that not being there lowers your quality score. So if you've then got another competitor who's got GTIN in and they're bidding the same as you, their quality score is going to be higher, and so actually they're going to appear in front of you. So yeah, it does have a massive impact, and it's one of those, if you've got them, you should always put them in the feed. And we have to do a lot of work, trying to buy third party databases and try to get, and then the GTIN model in itself is like, you can have the same product, it's got 13 different GTINs based on what country it's supposed to be for. It's just you kind of when it says global trade identifier, you presumed it would be one for one product, but unfortunately no, it doesn't work that way.
Cool.
Good knowledge.
Awesome. Thank you. I mean, you're super knowledgeable, and we could probably talk to you for many more hours on this stuff, and also just the future of ecom as well. I know, following your LinkedIn posts, you've got a lot of thoughts on, what's going on in the industry right now, where it could go, not just product discovery wise, but also the whole ecosystem, how AI is going to affect supply chains and whatnot.
Yeah, and I just think as well, it's just, I feel like there's a consolidation coming right now. I think even if you look at eBay buying Depop the other day, it's kind of like, okay, Vinted is obviously the platform in that space at the moment that's taken off, and so, okay, is that going to become an acquisition target, or will they be able to last it out and kind of go off on their own? I think, again, from my perspective, we want to try and help brands not have to rely on Amazon for traffic. I think, when you talk to brands about CPAs and they're like, and then you're like, but they're selling on Amazon, and what they're paying to Amazon for it. It's like, but you own the customer if we do it for you. Like, Amazon owns the customer if you do it that way. But I guess people get caught in what they're used to. And again, everyone's addicted to the sale. So it's like, you don't want to do something that's going to, I've made the decision we're turning Amazon off. Okay. And then a month later, it's like, well, the sales haven't come in yet. And it's like, who's going to put their neck on the line with that? So our job is to improve what we've got, try and keep growing their, off marketplace sales, and really kind of, try and, because I think, from a brand perspective, as much as they can do on their own site is way more beneficial, like in terms of the customer data, them being able to build their own audiences. I think, we talked about community before. I think, the brands have got to start thinking about what their communities are for their products. Otherwise, you just end up in a race to the bottom for, looking for X, and that marketplace seems to have the cheapest product. I'm going there, and I think that'd be a shame, because I think there's some great brands that probably, with a better focus on the performance element of it, would be able to massively grow and see their own audiences scale.
100%. Nice. Quickfire round. You ready for it?
Is this where I'm supposed to cry? Yeah, it used to be embarrassing for me.
What's the saddest? No. So what we ask is a bunch of random quickfire questions, and I'll start with this one, as you're definitely qualified to answer this as a CEO. Finish this sentence.
Okay.
Leadership is
taking people on a journey.
Nice. Like that.
Succinct as well.
It's
some people tend to ramble, but
I think you can go on it, but I think ultimately it comes down to, ironically, I've got my company town hall tomorrow, so I stand up in front of the office and pitch, where we're at, where we're going, how I believe we can get there. And I think ultimately, leadership can be characterized loads of different things. It can be, but I think ultimately you need the people to believe in what you're saying and where the company's going, and that your job is to give them that clarity to go, right, I get where we're going. I think it is just being able to take people on a journey and understand that they're all different and their motivations are different, but we have to be aligned on one goal. Otherwise, that's where you end up.
I love that.
Splintering off.
Yeah, love it. How often do you do your town halls?
We do it monthly. So we do it, and we changed it. So we have one office day a week at the moment on a Tuesday. We do it the last Tuesday of the month, so everyone's in. So essentially, it's like the face-to-face element of it, I think, is more important than anything. We were discussing before about Zooms and Google Meets. There's nothing I dislike more than talking into my camera, looking at my own face on the screen while it's doing. I like to be able to engage with the people afterwards as well. And I think sometimes people have questions and they don't want to ask them in the form, but if you're there, they can just go, "Oh, you said about that. Can you explain it to me?" And I always want to be available for that. I think sometimes you're thinking about things 2-3 steps ahead, so you might start talking about those, but you need to help them again go on that journey to piece to go, okay, I get where you're going from now. You're not just saying, we're going down this angle. And they're like, what? I thought we were this, and I think it is that bit of just being able to spend the face-to-face time with them is hugely important.
Cool. What would your 12-year-old self say about who you've become today?
Well, my 12-year-old self thought I was going to be playing pro hockey in the NHL, so probably a bit disappointed in me, to be honest. No, I think it'd probably be like, I'm shocked you got where you got. I think my school life, in fact, I'm going through this with my son now, so I probably shouldn't, you can't clip this up until after he's done his GCSEs. I think my ethos was always, I'll just work it out. So school was kind of one of those, revision though, it's not, and then touch wood, I was always luckily just enough to get by. And I think as I progressed, I realized that actually, once you're passionate about something, you can really go deep into it and put it to the test. So I think it is that, find something that you're passionate about. And I know that, but then just go deep into it and just actually accept that, if you go deep into a subject, it helps you everywhere. Like, I know there's lots of talk around being kind of a jack of all trades. And I do think that has value, but I think if you've got one thing that you've really passionate and gone deep into, that just helps you thinking in lots of other areas.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's, mine ended up being conversion rate optimization, which is what I did before I came to work with Doug. And I think it still helps me to this day because I think about things and say, well, what's the impact of that going forward? And, what's the hypothesis and what are we expecting to work out? I think that helps frame my decision making. And rather than just, we're going to do this, it's the whys, almost like the 5 whys to get down to the actual reasoning other than we just thought it was a good idea. So
I'm a huge advocate of obsessions, that not everyone's obsessive, but the people that I know, including myself, that are obsessive, can just become so effective and can become so knowledgeable in a certain area that's just effortless because they're obsessed.
Yeah.
And the school of life stuff as well is kind of cheesy, but I've got a 4-year-old boy and a 5-year-old girl, and like to your point about your son doing his GCSEs, I don't know yet because it's quite a while away, but I think I'll find it hard to be genuine in telling them they have to go down the education route because I dropped out of college before 1 year, so I only got GCSEs myself, and it went around the houses, but it worked out well, but that's because of my nature. And if I can see the same nature in them, how can I tell them to go and get in debt and do college as the only route?
And I think somebody went to university when it was cheaper. It's kind of like I wouldn't, if it was now, I wouldn't go. I love the social side of it. I hated the university course side.
What did you study?
Leisure marketing. And so my justification for going was I went to 2 universities for the open day, Nottingham, Trent, but it was grey, raining, and then I went to Bournemouth. It was sunny. They took us down to the beach, and I was like, "Oh, I'm coming here." Do you know what I mean? It was like, so actually, my course was just based off, well, I'm going there, and the social aspect and the people I met was amazing. But I don't feel like I've ever really used that course anywhere since. I think interesting you talk about that. I was talking with my son, and I was like, if I was you now, I'd be like, because he's quite into trades. He did a like work experience with an electrician. I was like, I'd get a trade and I'd learn paid media, because if you can run ads and you're the tradesperson, you're just going to clean up in your local area because you're competing against other tradespeople who are just focused on the trade bit. They might be using an agency, but if you can do both sides of it and use AI for it, and I think that's the thing, is like, how do you guide them when the world is accelerating on change so much? But yeah, I think, like you say, I think obsession is a key thing, and that kind of helped me into getting, where I am today. I was obsessed with ice hockey, and it took me a long time. And when I finished, I then took that obsession and put it into work. So I probably, up until that point, work was almost kind of secondary because I was, and then it was like, right, I took that and I doubled down into the work category. And that's actually when I started working for Doug as well. And it's kind of both things have gone at the same time. But I don't know if I'd have had the same passion if I hadn't have had it for so long in one thing. And, I was obsessed. I was a player coach for my last 5 years. And I was like, we were playing in what was basically a semi-pro league. And I'm like, reviewing videos of games and like working out the finite margins of where we made a mistake, or, no one was doing that in the thing.
That's passion.
But actually it's like they are the marginal gains that move the needle. And, we finished my final season. We went the whole season unbeaten. So we won we didn't lose a game, won the league, won the playoffs. And I finished there, and I kind of was like, and I just took that energy straight into my work. And I think obsession and passion is a key thing. And you'll see it now with AI tools. The people who get obsessive with them will have them the huge gains in terms of they'll be the 100x employees that people talk about because they will be able to do so much with just them and a £200 license to a tool and really add value to business.
Yeah, it's reassuring hearing you say that because we've been banging about this in our own business. One of our early, in our early version of our values, one of them was like, we've dropped this out now, we've changed it, but it used to be fueled by obsession. That was like one of our strap lines internally. But I really believe that. I think that immersion is another way of saying it as well. Like immersion is the best way to train and learn. Someone is completely immersed themselves. And what happens when you become obsessive is like you're not even in control. It's kind of like it can go in the wrong directions for some people, can't it? Like if you get obsessed with the wrong stuff. But if you get obsessed with something that's actually useful, you're immersed in it. And like you said, you're just checking every spare second that you've got and probably stuff that you haven't got spare. You're working on that thing. If you're competing or you're in a field where that's not happening on the other side, you've got an unfair advantage.
Yeah. It's I think again, it's like radiators and drains, isn't it? A person that's been immersed in it, they come in, they radiate energy from it, and other people go, "Oh, okay." Like, and they kind of pick up that energy. Whereas often there's almost the mood can be sucked out.
Radiators and drains. I've not heard that one. I thought we've heard every business.
I know where I've but
phrase going.
It's always be a radiator, not a drain. And I think the people who are passionate at things, they bring that energy in, and it does. People who are a bit more on the fence, they go, "I'll go and have a look, actually." I just did this. And I think, again, it comes down to that first win with it almost. Like you were saying about your partners, like the first time they use it and they're like, it's giving me that answer. It's like, you need a win. Mine was it cleaned up my desktop. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I started using Claude Cowork and I'm like, I have the worst desktop in history. Like there's thousands of thousands. And I was like, right. And it was so stupid. I told him my desktop and it told me what it was doing. It sorted them all out, named them all, folded them all. And my desktop is beautiful now. And every time it gets a bit messy, I just ask it to do it again. But it's like, and then I'm like, well, I'm using it now to run the business almost essentially because it gained my trust weirdly.
But I mean, we're probably all quite obsessive people here, but not everybody is just born that way. It doesn't come natural to them. So it's hard sometimes when you're in a business to suddenly say, oh, everybody should start doing this this way. Even though they've had none of that in their previous life. But if you get some early adopters and then they see that, oh, they're just like me and they've picked it up, so I'll do it. And I think we've seen that in our own business.
Yeah, we're trying that now. We're doing some AI open hours. We've got some guys. So basically we gave everyone access in a small test group. Like you've all got access to the tool. We'll give you like the pro license. Actually, these guys are once a week, they're going to tell you to do this and then go away, play with it, come back and say, oh, I had trouble here, do that. And basically we want that to then kind of ripple through the teams. And then ultimately from our perspective, like the paying of the license fees, if people are even, 20% more productive on the back of it, it's worth its weight in gold. But also for them, I think, world's changing. People are going to start to get a little bit like, what does it mean for me? I think if you're an early adopter of these things, you're going to have a head start on the people that are just like, oh, it'll never replace me. And then the next minute you're like, oh, this AI is ringing people up and closing deals. It's it's an interesting time.
Yeah, for sure.
When was the last time you felt completely out of your depth?
Every day being a CEO. I think again, my team, they roll their eyes when I do this, and so I listen to a lot of podcasts. And I always in the office. I was listening to a podcast, and you can just see, and it comes out. And I think it's that thing of I think CEO is such a lonely job, for a lot of the time because everyone comes to you for the answers. I ain't got the answers all the time, but I am also expected to kind of come up with it. And I think from that perspective, it's like, okay, right, how do I get a best case scenario in my head where I'm comfortable going, right, I think this is potentially somewhere we should go and look. So I think, I think any CEO who thinks they've got it nailed every day is kidding themselves because you can't, and it's always heartwarming to, you listen to some of the greatest CEOs ever and they're like, everyone's making it up as they go along. And so I think it's that bit of, there's days I'll wake up and I'm just like, I don't think I know what I'm doing. Like, how am I even still in this role? But then, quite quickly I get back into it. So, I think feeling out of my depth is not daily, maybe weekly review process for me.
I can relate. So I think that's a good answer and very honest. Is there a book? Do you do much books? I know you're big on podcasts, but is there a book that's sort of, if you had to pick one book that's really shaped if you had to recommend one book to us, what one would it be? Business-wise? Leadership, growth, business?
Yeah. So it would have been for a while, Amp It Up by Frank Slootman. That was the CEO of Snowflake. I read that a few years ago and really kind of resonated with it. But I just read The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz, who is now at Andreessen Horowitz, the VC. That was really, 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 really good. Especially kind of in a senior role, kind of understanding the dynamics of how life, business, the pressures you're under. So yeah, that one was good. I am quite a big reader. So I did a few years ago. I did 75 Hard. You have to do 2 workouts a day, and you have to read 10 pages a day.
David Goggins?
No, it's a guy called Andy Frisella who owns a company called First Form in the US. He started it, but I think Goggins has been on his podcast.
Right.
But it's essentially you have to do 2 45-minute workouts a day. You have to read 10 pages of a book. You have to drink, I can't remember, 3. It's basically just under 4 liters of water.
You're going to do this now, aren't you?
You're like,
it sounds great.
It's way more of a mental.
How long for?
75 days, and you can't miss a single thing in 75 days, or you have to go back to the beginning.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, you have to take a photo as well. You have to take a progress photo every day. And it was basically did it, and so I got really into it because I had to do 10 pages a night. I really got into it, and so I just I try and adopt that policy of I try and do 5 to 10 pages a day, just to because I'm reading numerous amounts of books then for a year, and there's always something in it that just resonates with a problem or something you're dealing with at that time.
This level of self-help stuff, grinding, and even if it's periodically trying stuff, like this level, is so consistent among founders, CEOs, people in high performance, high pressure roles that we work with, and also now through the podcast that we meet. It's crazy to me. Like, that is not a coincidence. That's not normal. But it's the sort of shit that gets us excited as well. And I know lots of other people who have shared extremes like that, but I kind of want to try that.
Yeah, one of them has to be outdoors as well, and so I did it in the winter.
One of the 2 workouts a
yeah,
day.
so it can be a walk or a run outdoors,
Right.
but it has to be outdoors. So 1 a day has to be outdoors. It's just raining, herring. I don't know, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? But it's like, but I'm 21 days in now. Do you know what I mean? I can't quit it. And so
good character forming and building as well, and strengthening.
The only thing I can't get on board with is ice baths. I can't.
I love an ice bath, but I love funny thing is, I was walking in this morning, listening to a podcast, walking into the studio, and I heard an ad read for infrared saunas, and I'm planning to get a sauna.
I've got an infrared sauna.
Cool. Yeah. Is it good?
Yeah, very good. Yeah. So I had one of those sauna tents for a while, where it's basically a kettle boils up.
Yeah.
And it's just horrible. It's just soggy. And whereas this is like dry heat. The infrared's good for you anyway.
One man size, or is it 2?
I've got 1 man size, yeah.
So I'm thinking about getting a 1 or 2 man size just out by where the robin's nest currently is. And then I was thinking, but if I do that, I'll get an ice bath as well, because I love coming out of a sauna going straight into an ice bath.
Yeah.
But then I remembered I haven't done ice baths regularly for a while. Me and Jamie have been to, we used to, when RedBrain was very early, we'd go to the spa when we were when he was in the UK, we'd go and just have a meeting standing in a jacuzzi or whatever, but we'd go sauna, ice bath. So he's seen me, I've been really into it at one point, and it's effortless, but if you're, I haven't done one for about over a year. It's so hard when you're not in the rhythm.
Maybe just have a cold shower and then go in the sauna.
It's not extreme enough.
So my sauna's in the garage, and so at the moment it's like I step out of that, it's freezing. I'm like, there's not a chance I get in an ice bath now and sit in it. It's just, I don't know. So weirdly, having grown up in ice rinks, so as a kid all the way up to adult, I'd flip-flop shorts in an ice rink all summer long. It didn't bother me. Now I go in an ice rink, I'm freezing cold. It's just
this sounds like a mountain that you need to climb, Jared. I mean, having met you today and properly get
we'll do a follow-up, and I'll be in the ice bath.
Yeah, I mean,
I
almost feel like it represents a part of your self you haven't pushed yet.
Maybe I could start a podcast where it's in an ice bath. So it's very short fire.
What could go wrong?
5 minutes.
Final one. What is the single biggest opportunity that most brands are missing out on right now?
It sounds cheesy. I honestly believe if you're not doing CPA CSS, you should run it on a test. And from that perspective, just do your zombie products. So if you're unsure of it, you think it's going to be cannibalistic, you think it's going to, just give them the products that you don't sell. Last 30 days, what's had less than 10 impressions, no clicks, just give them that feed and because ultimately, if the CSS can prove value there, that is pure incremental value because you were getting nothing from it. And then just have the conversation about, okay, how do we open up more of it? But I think the blanket kind of no is kind of very short-sighted because, again, I think it's 50% of products in merch never get a click or an impression. So you've got and somewhere you've got to pay for them or sell them somewhere. So all that happens is you end up sticking them on sale for 70% off at the end of a season. And kind of, you could be selling those potentially full price now and just paying a commission on them. So yeah, it does sound very self-serving, but I honestly believe it is.
Straight back
you
on
pitched it
message.
so well that I'm not even questioning it, but I just realized, we asked what's the single biggest opportunity that most brands, CSS. But we agree. Look at the case study. Look at what we've done as an agency towards CSS. I mean, I totally agree. It's one of the areas of an affiliate ecosystem that is sometimes ignored or underutilized. So I would have to agree with you. It's a big opportunity. But thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, it was great chatting with you. And if anybody wants to sort of reach out, or if you wants to get in touch, LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn's probably best. Yeah. It's that works for me.
And you want to read your mobile number out?
I read my work mobile number out, but I don't know it.
Jared, thank you so much. You've been amazing.
No,
Cheers,
thank
mate.
you guys. Appreciate it.
Nice
Thank
one.
you very much.
Cheers.